This is Dan Drake with Front Up on Visitor Network TV. The Nantucket Book Festival, the third annual, is coming up on the weekend of June 20th to 25th, and I thought it would be great to talk to the two people who are co-chairing it, Annie Camara and Meg Valero.
Hello.
How are you? Thanks for joining us. This is a labor of love on both your parts, is it not?
Absolutely, and it's mostly a volunteer. Mm-hmm. There's two paid people who work with us, and they're wonderful. But this is island-based and volunteer-based, and lots of hours put in by everyday folk like us.
Now you've been involved with it from the beginning, I understand, Meg.
Since year one. So sat in the room with Wendy Hudson and Mary Haft and said, it's really time for the island. We've got all these other festivals. It's time for a book festival. How do we make this happen?
Did you have any kind of background other than presumably liking to read?
No. I come from a background of getting it done, mm-hmm. Sort of organization and event-driven stuff. Wendy obviously had the book background. Mm-hmm. Mary Haft, our other co-founder, was involved with Penn Faulkner in Washington, D.C., so she knew a lot of the authors and the fundraising component, so the three of us teamed up to get that first year off the ground.
Is Mary still involved?
Mary is still involved. She lives part of her year in D.C. and part of her year here, so she splits her time.
Right. And Annie, you have a little bit of history in the book business.
I have history. I got my first library card when I was 2, but skipping ahead a few years, I have owned bookstores and worked in publishing for a while before becoming an island grocer.
You've also been involved in the One Book, One Island program, have you not?
Yes, we've always provided food for the celebration events, but this year I was part of the group that got to decide what we were going to read and planning the events, and that's a really wonderful group because it's heads of a lot of organizations, nonprofits and otherwise. And
and you can actually get them to agree on something.
Yes. And this year we did, I think one of the best books we've ever done was To Kill a Mockingbird, which was a real favorite. A lot of people wanted to read it. A lot of people wanted to reread it. And we had a great time. And we ended up at the end of the week with a fried chicken dinner and a band at the NHA. And about 150 people turned out, so it was a great winter event.
That is a great winter event, and it brings people together out of their nests or dens or whatever to get together. So let's talk about this book festival. What's happening? We have some of the authors here, but before we get into a specific authors, just give us an overview, please.
So we kick off on Monday morning with some events at the Athenaeum Great Hall. And go through Sunday evening, our final event being a book to film event that sort of bridges us into film festival.
So it's really a week-long event?
Nope, no. Friday to Sunday.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said Monday.
Nope, just
that's right. I'm sorry. My mistake. I'm sorry.
No worries. And so the event is composed of more than 50 free events. And a handful of paid ticketed ones. We try to keep it as free and open to the public as we possibly can. We ticket events that have meals, basically. With the idea being that we want everybody, even if you don't consider yourself a reader, to find something that resonates with them and become a part of the festival. So over those 3 days, most of the events take place right downtown between the Unitarian Meeting House, the Great Hall at the Athenaeum, and both bookstores. There'll be signings. Athenaeum Garden is a central place for local authors on Saturday. And then there are some spotted events throughout the weekend. You can check out the website to see more of those at various restaurants and that kind of thing.
And there's lots of signage.
That's great.
If people are wandering around downtown and don't know that things are happening, there's lots and lots of signage, principally yellow signage with some ribbons attached to various locations. And we're trying to, and this program will be available at the Visitors Center, in the Athenaeum, both of the bookstores, some local businesses, and it has all of the information, and I believe there's a map in there, and so everything you need to know is in here, and we're making these very available all over the place.
Great. So let's talk about first of all, how do you get authors to come to Nantucket?
Some of them
Some of them actually live here. But
well,
other than that.
very few of them actually live here. Some of them ask to come, and they submit through the winter, and we make selections, but most of them we ask. There is a wonderful committee of people, including Annie, that are in the know, that come up with sort of a short list of who they might like to have. And you start, I call it dialing for dollars, and calling up people and asking.
Yeah, you're doing that too.
Yes.
I have to say this little committee of 4 to 5 people pick some of the most amazing authors, and our track record of people that we would consider newer emerging authors that then go on and in the following months or years become really big hits is pretty impressive. It just shows that the committee has great taste.
Yeah. This author, Anthony Mara, is a good example of that. He is I think he's only in his early 30s at this point. He teaches creative writing, but this novel, without any exaggeration, is probably the best novel I've read in 3 decades. It's set in Chechnya. It's a sad book, but it's an amazingly beautiful book, transcendent ending, and after we asked him to come, and he said he would come because we were all really blown away by this story. I get tears in my eyes every time I talk about this book. He started winning awards left and right. So we
Is he
as
young as he looks in the picture?
Yeah. So his session will be with George Pelicanos. So that'll be a great session conducted by Michael Schulder. And Michael Schulder, who is a former senior executive producer with CNN, who's a seasonal visitor, is going to interview him and Cynthia Bond and Tim Horvath and Molly Antipole, all of whom we've asked and started winning awards right after we asked them. So I think we're lucky charms.
How about this book, the book about China, The Age of Ambition by Evan Osnos?
Evan is another very young man. He is probably maybe in his early 40s now. He was, for many years, the Middle Eastern correspondent for the New York Times, and then moved to the New Yorker, where he was the China correspondent from Beijing for 8 years. So people will be familiar with him from reading the New Yorker and the Times. And this book is going to be really appealing to people who are interested in international politics, culture, and just learning what the average and not so average Chinese person is all about right now.
And then we have Jeff Dyer.
Dyer, right. One of our committee members who's seen him a couple of times at other festivals said, you could listen to Jeff Dyer talk for 5 hours and want more. So he is a very unusual writer in the world of writers. Is
he British?
He is British, classically trained as a writer, but he is the Daily Observer in England said that he is possibly the greatest living writer in Great Britain. He picks something he's interested in, follows it to its conclusion, and this book, which is set on the aircraft carrier, the George W. Bush, H.W. Bush, right? He spends 2 weeks there, so this is a little bit of sociology about life on an aircraft carrier, and it's mesmerizing.
So if you live on an island 30 miles out to sea for long periods of time in the winter when you can't leave, this is a book that might resonate with you.
It's interesting. Sounds fascinating. And he's going to be here, and he's going to give a talk.
He's going to give a talk, and he's also going to be one of the key speakers at the opening ceremony. The opening ceremony is on Friday night, and of great interest to anybody who's got a child in the Nantucket Public Schools or is interested in the Nantucket Public Schools. This is Mary Half's project. She's a board member with Penn Faulkner. She's the one that put the Nantucket Book Festival together with
Wendy.
And the festival is very important in support of writing programs that happen in the winter at the schools, and at the opening ceremony, the Young Writer Award, the second year in a row, will be presented to a Nantucket High School student.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
it's based on an
wonderful.
essay contest. The kids throughout the school system get an opportunity to read something by a different author. The year prior it was Jack Gantos. This year it was a woman named Julie Berry. And so then the kids get a unifying reading experience, and then the author actually comes to the island before school gets out. The children get to meet them.
Who won it
which-
last year? I know you won't tell me who won it this year, so who's going to win it this year, but who won it last
I
year?
can't come up with that off the top of my head.
But I think what's really important to me, and one of the reasons I'm involved in the festival, is young people. Keeping kids who are saturated with every device on the planet, all the technology in the world, connected with reading. And reading doesn't have to be on a paper page, although that's how I prefer it. Books on tape or e-readers or whatever your preferred methodology of reading is, sort of keeping kids engaged in the stories of others is increasingly difficult. And I think when they have the opportunity to see an author, see a writer, connect with that experience and let it sort of resonate in their own life, or really sort of feel a little more deeply connected to that story, they become more avid readers.
And also to see good writing, because they don't get much of any training in that anymore, as I understand it.
Oh,
So, I got to ask you.
Yeah, you got to talk about
I gotta
that.
ask you about
Gotta-
this.
this is
what,
so
What are you
cool.
trying to do
Yeah.
here? Strip the Athenaeum or kill the bookstores or what? What's
No,
this all about?
we're putting this on books that we want people to steal.
So don't steal just any book, but books where you see this. The book festival will be putting out books in various places. Some of them will be downtown, others will be places like the small lending library at Stone Beach, and they will have this label on them, and it's encouraged that you would read the book, share your experience. There's remittance information inside to give some feedback, but then pass the book along and leave it for somebody else to walk on off with.
With the Steal It sign.
With the seal inside.
That's great. Tell us again, the website is NantucketBookFestival.org.
ORG. Yep.
And it has, as this does, it has the schedule on it.
Right?
It has the schedule, it has
And-
author biographies, as well as a complete event listing and the places where you can
The venues.
learn what is ticketed and what is not.
All right, great. Well, I hope it's a tremendously successful
Thank you.
festival, and I think you both are to be commended for your passion, because that's very important.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.